We got a news story here. The iPhone can now run Android thanks to something called Project Sandcastle. And it's important to note here right away, this is not going to be an easy thing to do, and it's not going to be a supported thing to do, and it's not going to be a thing that the average person is going to do. This is a bit of, an enthusiast expedition. It's an experiment. It's a project, hence the name, Project Sandcastle. The idea being, let's see, as a group of developers, tinkerers, and so forth, let's see if we can get Android to run on an iPhone. And they were successful in doing so. Specifically an iPhone 7, and there's some video footage, in fact, of this guy from Forbes running it, installing it. Now, the device is jailbroken. I don't know if anybody remembers the jailbreak scene. I was in it for a minute. Jailbreaking with the pineapple logo.
Yep.
Remember those days? Well, that's not what it is now. The hot jailbreak of today, at least in this video here, is called Check Rain. But I remember the rain component being a part of other jailbreaks in the past. Rain, something else, rain. Wet rain.
Wet rain. It's a bit redundant.
What about dry rain? What is that?
Much better.
Sandstorm. So this is exciting to people because it gets you thinking about a reality. It gets you thinking about a universe that doesn't exist. It's reminiscent of the Hackintosh era. Of course, that was the flipped way, wasn't it? That was trying to get Mac OS to run on PC components.
Yes.
It gets you thinking about iOS on Android hardware. It gets you thinking, of course, about Android on iOS hardware, which is what's happening here. Now, there's another spicy element to the story. I know you like the spicy elements, Will. You like to go out for the spicy food and whatnot, right? The spicy element is the company that's working on this Project Sandcastle, apparently has team members who are part of a cybersecurity startup named Corellium. And the company Corellium is currently being sued by Apple for building a virtual iOS module where you could run iOS without a phone.
Oh.
And they're claiming it's all about cybersecurity, looking for loopholes in the software, experimenting without the downside of bricking a tremendous number of devices. They can play around and tinker with the virtual phone without, it would be impossible if you had to do it on the physical hardware with the risk involved.
Right.
$1,000 a phone. So Apple's suing them saying, hey, you're ripping us off. We don't want you using our stuff like that. And this Project Sandcastle apparently wouldn't be possible without that virtual iOS developed by Corellium. So let's just say Apple is not happy about any of this, as you would probably assume. The other thing I should mention is that this, if you think you're going to attempt it, guy like you, which would be a pretty crazy thing, I don't recommend you attempt it. But if you were going to, you should check out this chart right here, seeing what's working and not working. And what you're going to find here is that your best shot at getting the most hardware to operate properly within Android on your iPhone is if you're using an iPhone 7 or 7 Plus. And as you move up to the more current devices all the way to 11 Pro, you'll see almost nothing works on the 11 Pro. So this chart helps you map out what's being impacted. No GPU, no audio, no cellular, no Bluetooth, no camera. But it still works, and it's the beginning. So it's an interesting development from where I sit, from my perspective. And it's something I've always thought about and wondered about, a universe in which Apple was not this, what do they call it, a walled garden? Was not this within its own silo of services, software, and hardware. Of course, this reality doesn't exist, probably never will. But what would people choose? What would iOS users buy if the iPhone, the hardware version, didn't work? Which Android smartphone would an iOS fan choose to have their iOS installed on if they couldn't have an iPhone right now? I like imagining these things.
Yes.
And of course, users in the audience, they can participate in the comment section of this video.
You can't do that.
Yeah, imagine that.
What do you think?
They would pick a Samsung, right? OnePlus? I don't know. Man, it's hard.
Yeah, Samsung.
We'll see what they say. If you're currently an iPhone user and you were forced to transition to Android hardware, which device would you use with iOS installed? And conversely, if you're an Android user, would you be interested in Apple's hardware if you could bring your software with you? I mean, that's what these guys are working on. It's never going to happen in the real world, but it's interesting for now. And who knows, maybe it could be the start of a whole scene, reverse Hackintosh scene.
It could be like a boot camp.
Yeah, well, Boot Camp was authorized. They were cool with that.
Yeah, but like a version of that where you can run Android and iOS.
Well, how about this, though? How about there for people or groups that need to run Android-specific apps but have leftover iOS hardware? If you need to run, I mean, I think they use an example in this video of Signal. Can you get Signal for iOS, the messaging app? I guess you can, but so I don't know why they brought that one up specifically. But you can imagine that an app exists in the Android ecosystem that you can't get on iOS. I'm sure that there's something that exists, and then you could bring new life in that department. Or if you were an iOS developer, or you wanted to be an iOS developer, an Android developer, and you only have the iOS hardware. I don't know. I'm creating scenarios here, Will. Can you give me a break? Gee, it's 2020. There's a lot going on here. I think it's interesting nonetheless. It gets you thinking. It'll never happen officially, but it gets you thinking. If this company can keep going, Project Sandcastle, without getting sued into oblivion,
Yes.
with a pit stop in Timbuktu,
That's far.
on their way to oblivion. A pit stop for a quick diner in Timbuktu
Yeah.
with a hot coffee and a hot toddy. Tell you what. And quick skillet. Because I'll tell you what, if you're going to send me to oblivion, I want a skillet first.
There you go. A full tummy.
Yeah, breakfast skillet. A potato. Scrambled eggs. Lots of pepper. And peppers.
Bacon or sausage?
Bacon, and how dare you?
All right.
Little grated cheese.
Ketchup or no?
Little crispy top. And I'll take a hot toddy to go with it.
All right.
So I can get over this little... get over that little...
All over the desk.